It's about that time again. We are on the precipice of the yearly traditional Doctor Who fandom discourse. Yes, this happens every year at around this time, just as an episode comes out. We have to talk about it once again. I'm of course talking about ratings. Can you believe it? We're still talking about ratings in the year of our Lord 2023. But no, there is still a conversation that needs to be had. Sadly. For many years now, since around Series 8, the ratings in Doctor Who have been a contentious topic, with their history being layered and complex. But people don't think that. They think it's just as simple as I see the number, big number go boom, bad number go boo, and that's all that needs to be said about it. But I think with a lot of people coming into the fandom, a lot of people not really knowing what to expect, I think that I should make a video catching everyone up to speed on both the history of ratings throughout the entirety of Doctor Who. Yes, I'm going to be talking about the classic era as well here, guys. I'm pulling out all the stops, and I'm also going to be debunking a few prevalent myths which have somehow or other made their way into the fandom mainstream. So buckle in, get a snack, get a drink, I don't really know, and let's talk about Doctor Who's ratings. But before that, guys, we have to talk about something quite serious. Okay, I'm going to put a timestamp on screen for when I'm finished talking about this. This is unscripted, this portion of the video. I just wanted to update you about the channel, the state of the channel, and what's gonna happen next, because I'm sure a lot of you may have noticed I made a community post about this, but I actually got a copyright strike. I got my first copyright strike. I can't believe it, frankly. I'm gonna go over it. Surprisingly, it was not from the BBC. And unsurprisingly, it's complete bullshit. The claim itself is one of the most laughable I've ever seen. I mean, anyone who's watched my videos knows that I'm not breaking copyright law, right? That much should be obvious. But in this specific case, there's not even an imaginable argument. I think I should probably explain it, because there are actually quite a few layers to this case, because obviously I didn't want to fit everything into that one post. A couple days ago, I got the email and the YouTube notification that my video about Five Nights at Freddy's had been taken down. Now, this is a real shame, of course, because it was quite a long video. It took a lot of effort. I put a lot of work into making it a fun video, well edited. Obviously, it's something different on the channel. It's not stuff I usually post. So it's like a special type of video. And I call them bonus videos, because they literally are just meant as supplementary to my regular content. If you just so happen to be interested in it, you can watch. They don't really get that many views, and I'm fine with that. The time it was taken down, the video was on around 5,000 views. Now, you may be wondering, so if it wasn't a Doctor Who video, and it wasn't the BBC, how the hell did you get struck down? Well, I was wondering the same thing. When the video was released, it was originally blocked worldwide, the original draft of it, which has happened with basically all of my Five Nights at Freddy's video. They have been a nightmare to get out due to copyright. And I have no issue with a copyright claim, which is when they send a claim on the video, which isn't a strike, and they just take all of the ad revenue from the video, because at least people get to see it, and I can just dispute the claim, and then I'll win, because I'm obviously not breaking any copyright laws. So I am fine with not getting my money for a couple of days, just so the video is up there. But what I can't allow is for the videos to be blocked, because then no one sees them. What's even the point? So I obviously tinkered around with it a lot. Don't worry, I'm going to explain into what actually got the video blocked in just a second. But eventually I got it out and available, so that instead of being blocked worldwide, it was only a copyright claim, which, as I say, I can live with. I can dispute the claim. Usually what happens is they will deny your first appeal. Trust me, I'll get into explain why. And then after 30 days after that, they'll just let it go. That did not happen here. The reason I got struck is because I appealed and they denied my appeal, which means my video gets taken down. And now let's finally talk about why the video got taken down and why it is complete and utter BS. I'm not going to swear. So my video was about the topic Midnight Motorist, which, if you don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, I wouldn't expect anyone who's watching this video to. It's a mini game. It's like a hidden storyline hidden in one of the games. It's in the style of an 8-bit arcade game from the 80s, because if you don't know, Five Nights at Freddy's is set in the 1980s. And it depicts a man coming home on a rainy night, dark rainy night, through a back road to get to his house. That's why it's called Midnight Motorist. He's a motorist at midnight, right? And so I thought what would be fun, it would be interesting, is if I attempted at a real life depiction of this. So I searched around on YouTube for some stock footage and I found some. So I put that in my video. I added a bunch of lighting effects. I added in the soundtrack from the minigame. I added in rain and thunder effects. I added in a lot. Of course, I'm not going to be showing it on screen because I do not want to get copyright struck. And so I thought, oh, it would be cool, you know, to have like a kind of real life reenactment of an event that happened in the game as the intro to my video. And it is only around 20 seconds long. At most, it's like 28 seconds. And keep in mind, this is stock footage. Now, the people who claim me, they claim me on behalf of Gelin Movie. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it is basically an Indian movie. You can watch it on YouTube for free. It's from this Indian film company. It's a piece of shit. I had to watch through the whole movie to check what they were accusing me of stealing from, and trust me, it was completely awful. I despise you. I hate you. Please get fucked. Never work on anything again. Go to hell. But I quickly realized that they claim me. The reason they blocked me worldwide, the reason they'd done so much to try and take my video down, is because they also used this stock footage in their film. They used part of this stock footage. It's around a 6-minute long clip. They used a couple seconds of it in their film as well. But this is where it gets interesting. They did not use the same footage that I used. They just used a different part of the footage. They just used a different part of the YouTube video. So what happened here is that we both used different parts of the YouTube video. Not a second of audio or video from my video appears in theirs, and yet they still felt the need to copyright strike me. And the reason they were able to is because YouTube's copyright system is a complete piece of shit. See, I mentioned this before, but after you get a claim, you can appeal it. You can appeal the decision. What will happen then is that they then have either 10 days, 7 days, or 30 days to reply to your appeal. Usually, they will get back relatively fast, denying the first appeal, which means that then you'll have to appeal again. Because what happens with the appeal process is you would imagine, oh, appeal. The appeal gets sent to YouTube or an unbiased third party to assess it, and then they see who's right. Nope, the appeal gets sent to the person who submitted the claim, which means all they need to do, they don't need to read your appeal, they don't need to see if they're right or not, they just need to press deny and then they can take your money. It's only when you do your second appeal that the threat of legal action looms and it no longer becomes profitable to lie and just deny the appeal. So most companies, the BBC in particular, will tend to accept the appeal and let the video stay up and monetized. And in my experience, that is what has happened so far on every video, even my previous FNAF videos, which have also had major copyright issues. But for some reason, this case in particular, the one case where I did not use any, even imaginably, copyright material, nothing from their film is in my video. Nothing, not even a single second. I of course did not know that the film existed before I made the video, because why would I? And I went in and I checked and there is nothing. There is nothing from my video in that film, obviously. And yet they're still allowed to strike. And this is where it gets concerning. This is why I'm bringing it up, because now I have appealed that strike, because I'm not just going to let them get away with this. And in 10 business days, either they will accept my appeal or they will reject the appeal. And potentially, them rejecting the appeal can delete my channel. It can take it all down. And I think now you can see why I am starting the video like this, because I have taken a break from YouTube over these past few days while I've been getting this situation sorted out, while I've been writing my appeals. It's a very weird time because I am still working on YouTube videos, but I don't know if there is gonna be a channel. I really hope there will be. It's been quite a stressful situation, as you can imagine. Someone basically holding everything you've worked for over your head and you have no power to do anything about it. I understand that YouTube has no real control of the DMCA takedown system. They are merely facilitating it because they have to. If the YouTube company didn't do this, then they would just be sued out of the wazoo and they would be unable to do what they do. I understand it's not necessarily YouTube's fault, but as a creator of my size, I'm a very small creator. I cannot contact YouTube. I cannot let anyone know. I refuse on principle to ever have a Twitter account, so there's no hope of me even reaching out there. I'm basically completely in the dark here, and this could very well end up being the final video on the channel. So I thought I should let you know. I have been spending the day downloading all of my remaining videos and putting them on a drive. So I would also suggest you guys, if you have any videos that you want to see of mine, to download them, archive them, just so maybe they're not all lost forever. It may sound all doom and gloom, but I really do have a lot of faith that the strike will be lifted and that my channel will go back to normal. I'll get all my perks back. But I felt like I just had to get the worst case scenario out there so you guys know about it. So you guys know what I've been dealing with, because it has been quite a stressful week. But with all that said, I thank you for your patience. let's get on with the video. My main goal for this video is to explain the history of Doctor Who's ratings, its relationship with the trends in TV, and what to expect for the upcoming specials releasing in a few weeks. I imagine there will be quite a loud conversation coming up when these episodes air, and I want to get ahead of it all so people are caught up to speed, just so more people know what they're talking about. Because for years now, we have had people just saying stuff, to be honest, without any idea of what they're talking about. So here we are to explain it all, maybe debunk a few myths that are spreading around on the way as well. But we're going to be going through the figures, I'm going to be providing the context, I'm going to be providing the reasoning for why certain numbers are the way they are, and also proving once and for all that numbers aren't everything. Doctor Who's ratings in general are a touchy topic because there is this underlying assumption that the better the ratings, the better the show. And Doctor Who's ratings have been weaponized by detractors of the show. In fact, it's basically been the case for decades that people have been using lowering rating numbers as ammo. But what a lot of people don't realize that even in its weakest state, Doctor Who's ratings are better than most of the stuff on television. But to fully understand the whole situation, I think we're just gonna have to dive in. I have a couple tabs open. I have Doctor Who Season 1, Doctor Who Series 1, and a few others that we'll go into in a little bit. But I want to go through the history of the show, explain why certain numbers are the way they are, what they actually mean, and how to determine which ones are a success and which ones are not. Now, to the surprise of no one, I think we're gonna have to look at the date first. 1963 is different to 2023. Very different. And not just in the context of TV. But for the conversation that we're having right now, let's focus on that specifically. Television was very different back then. And so, as you can imagine, the viewing figures adjust to fit that. We'll be coming back to this again and again through the video. So I suggest you take a note if you are taking notes. I don't really know what's going on here. The landscape of television changes across the decades. Yeah, let's just put that down as a bullet point. But let's just dive right in and explain An Unearthly Child. Now, as you can see here, you can see the dates that the episode aired, you can see the appreciation index, and you can see the UK viewing figures. Now here, I know a few of you may be shocked to see that this is only 4.4 million. But let's keep in mind, at this point, Doctor Who is a new TV show. This is its first episode, the premiere. It is not well established yet. There is no legacy. These 4.4 million people are taking a chance. They're taking a gamble. However, with all that said, you can see that this figure is an outlier by the massive jump up 7 days later. And all of this, or at least most of it, can be attributed to this. The date, the 23rd of November, 1963. As you guys may be aware, the day before, on the 22nd of November, there was a little tragedy that occurred in America. And so because of that, the episode was re-aired at a later date. But still, if we look here and look especially at the 6.9, we get a better understanding of what was standard at the time. This is fine. It's not terrible, but it is not very good for 1963. Remember that. But then of course, we come to the big one, the Daleks. The episode and the monsters which solidified Doctor Who as what it is to this day. I mean, all you need to do is look at the jump from the episode where the Daleks are first introduced to the week after when the hype had hit. 6 million for a new TV show is nothing to scoff at, but when we get to figures like 9 million, 9.9 million, 10 million, oh brother, do we have a smash here. 10 million viewers is incredible. It is genuinely a smash hit. It is a number which many shows do not reach. This is incredible. This was cultural phenomenon level. And to prove it, you need to look no further than Dalek Mania. Doctor Who was on top of the world. And as you can see, the hype maintained. Naturally, you will see that the numbers do go down. 10 million simply is not sustainable. Returning back to the 5-6 million figures, which one may see as a bad thing, but look again at the dates. The first season started on the 23rd of November. The season ended in September. This natural decline in viewing figures is perfectly reasonable. And to sustain such viewing figures for such an extended period of time is nothing short than legendary. So let's go on to the second season and let's get on to the Dalek invasion of Earth. Holy Jesus. This is Doctor Who at the height of its cultural capital. 12 million? 13 million. There is a certain level where it goes beyond good and it reaches lightning in a bottle. This stuff, you can't replicate it. But when we go down a bit, we reach the Web Planet, which, as you can see, actually has higher viewing figures than the Dalek invasion of Earth. Keep in mind the Daleks are the most popular thing in Doctor Who. The Web Planet actually reaches greater heights. 13.5 million. Would you look at this? The appreciation index score, a little low, wouldn't you think? Well, here we have our first example of numbers not being everything. Now, while I personally harbor a great appreciation to this episode, I think it's safe to say that not everyone does. The Web Planet has frequently been called very boring, and some people would not use as nice words as that. But as you can see, the viewing figures remain pretty damn great, even when, as you can see, at the time, the episodes were not that well loved. But I think we should finally turn our attention back to the dates, because if we look here to the February, March, April time slot, this is the perfect period for Doctor Who. Trust me, we're going to keep coming back to this, but just remember this for later. March, April are great times for Doctor Who to be on the air. But look at this, 10 million simply is not sustainable. We keep it for as long as we can, but even when the Daleks return in the chase, it's only the first part that manages to break the 10 milli. But did you see that little mental trick that was just played? Look at these numbers. Look at them. Yeah, if you compare them to the Web Planet, they may seem paltry, but look at them on their own. These are ginormous. 9 million? And the Time Meddler sits somewhere around 8. For television around this time, 7 is the marker of a successful show. 7 million viewers is good. That is a success right there. Anything above that is exemplary. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's go on to season 4, where, as you can see, the numbers have dipped a little, but they quickly recuperate back up to the 7 million standard, which, as I just established, is very good. But look at these figures, 5 million, 6 million. These are by no means bad. I would say back then 6 million is okay. And I would say we reach the danger zone when we drop below 5. But as you can see, the numbers go up, they go down. We have our peak at around the middle, and by the end, things had more or less returned to where they started. Now let's skip ahead to season 6, because this is the season which I'm going to use as an example to prove that ratings aren't everything. Because let's look at this. A lot of people want to pretend or conflate that viewing figures match on with quality completely one-on-one. It's just not the case, and I think this is the perfect example. The War Games, one of my favorite episodes of all time, dropped to a truly bad figure of 3.5 million. Now, there is context surrounding the date 7th of June, which may explain why there was such a poor turnout, but genuinely here, I must admit, this is not a good figure. Yes, most of the serial is sitting at the 5 million sweet spot, but we do see it dip below, and 3.5 million is just not that good. But into a renewed era we go. The new decade, the 70s, brings us the third Doctor and Doctor Who's second golden age. Do you see how this happens? How every time things seem like they may be getting a little bit stale, the show reinvents itself, gets a new Doctor, gets a new recast. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a measure on the show's previous quality. It just happens naturally. But here we see a new Doctor, new villains, and new colour. 1971 would breathe new life into the show, as you can see by its very successful finish, The Daemons. Now, what I find interesting, and keep in mind this is from someone who has gone over these figures quite a few times before, there are a few different ways that the ratings change over a season. For example, in this case, with season 7 and season 8 combined, you will see that the ratings pretty much are going up for most of the season, with 7.8 being the average and it ending on a higher average of around 8.3. Whereas as we saw with season 1, and we will see with a lot of other seasons coming up, they start very big and then go down. And what I've come to the conclusion with is that it's about the marketing, it's about the exposure. Doctor Who, nor any show, I think, has the capacity for a constant barrage of marketing all year round. They have enough for 1, maybe 2 pushes. figures. And depending on the year, depending on the date they start, they may choose to either have this push at the start of the series, in the middle of the series, or at the end of the series. And we will see that going forward. And I would imagine, as we see this is in the April-May time period, that this is where there was a big push for Doctor Who. And if we skip ahead a little, it only goes up, with the show's 10th anniversary breaking the 10 million viewers threshold. But look at the other figures. 10 million is not sustainable. We are simply not able to consistently get it every episode, week in, week out. But that is not a slight. 9 million, 8 million, above 7 million. These are all great figures. Planet of the Daleks in that April timeframe, again managing to break the 11 million barrier. But from heights to greater heights, you guys have to see this. I feel like even people who haven't seen classic Doctor Who know that the fourth Doctor is him, but dear God, I have to show you these figures. This is the show at the height of its popularity. Well, maybe not this series specifically, but goddamn. I think you can see why a lot of the imagery from Tom Baker's Doctor Who still looms over the show today when you take a look at these mind-boggling numbers. But if you look down a bit, you will see that, of course, as I've been saying the whole video, the 10 million figures cannot last. Maintaining such large figures over an elongated period of time is incredibly difficult. Not to say that these figures are anything bad. They're incredible. This whole series is incredible. But I just really want to beat you over the head with the fact that it can't last. But keep that in the back of your head for just a second. We're on to season 17. And if you don't know where I'm going with this, you soon will. Because if you're unaware, this episode actually contains the most viewed Doctor Who episode ever. City of Death sitting at a mind-boggling 16.1 million. For comparison, this is Day of the Doctors. This is not getting topped anytime soon. And the reason is because these viewing figures are not the result of Doctor Who being successful. In fact, some would argue, including me, that this season was a failure. Because, as it says even right here in the Wikipedia article, the viewing figures were affected by the ITV strike, with the BBC's main rivals being totally off air, meaning that of course the viewing figures are high. There was nothing else to watch. And you'll see that these strikes came to bite the BBC back in the ass, because Shada was never made. The finale of season 17 was not completed. Do you see why I think this season is a failure? But let's move on. Let's go back to things not being able to last. Because season 18 is the final season of Tom Baker's fourth Doctor. And if we take just a little gander at the viewing figures, yeah, that's not good. But how? How the hell did we go from most viewed episode of Doctor Who ever to 3.7 million in a 1-year gap? Did people hate the last series that much? No. I feel like I've been saying this the whole video. The numbers just naturally go down. And with us entering a new decade, the 80s, let's just say there's a lot more competition this time going round. The Generation Game, Coronation Street. There were titans gunning for Doctor Who's top spot. So all things considered, these figures are not that surprising. Yes, they are a tad underwhelming, but keep in mind that the landscape of television had changed dramatically even in just a 1-year gap. Now think about how much it could have changed in 30, but just as Doctor Who seems to be limping along, it gets a new breath of life, with Doctor Who season 19 being a massive success. Every time Doctor Who shakes up the format, every time they bring in a new actor, we do see a boost in ratings, and season 19 is no different. But another explanation, as you will see from the air dates, is the change in release schedule. Moving the show away from the more competitive time slot, instead the series dropped 2 episodes weekly. A move that will prove to be successful, along with the return of the Cybermen. Hey, if you want more proof that ratings don't matter, look at Black Orchid's ratings. This episode is a piece of shit. But say it with me, people, the hype can't last. As you can see, season 20's ratings are not as impressive, but don't let that fool you. These are still very good. There's nothing wrong with the 7 million averages that most of these stories equate to. And something we need to keep in mind is that this is the time period where people at the BBC started going for Doctor Who's head. But let's move on to season 22 because I love talking about this one. Contrary to popular belief, this series is successful. It maintains a consistent viewership from 7 million start to 7 million finish. It has a small but natural dip in the mid portion, as we explained. Doctor Who cannot consistently maintain the same viewership all year round. This was a successful season. The same couldn't be said about its follow-up though. Hey kids, let's talk about why going on hiatus for over a year can be bad for the brand. Trial of a Time Lord returned to audiences' screens not only after the budget had been slashed along with the episode count, but also with a format change and a release day change. They didn't have a lot to market it with, and due to the show being off air for so long, a lot of the public had kind of moved on. These factors and more explain the abysmal viewing figures for season 23. There is no cope I can muster here. These are bad. These are bad numbers. At least the series goes up as it goes along, but for 1986, these are the numbers of a show that is barely limping on. So JNT, the showrunner at the time, tried a desperate maneuver to bring in a new Doctor, and it didn't work. As I mentioned before, the BBC were out for Doctor Who's head, so they put it in the worst time slot for it possible. That, along with the reputation that the series was beginning to gain, due to the BBC's meddling, by the way. And despite season 26 being praised by most fans nowadays for being some of the best of 80s Who, its viewing figures did not reflect that, with it only once being able to manage to reach the passable 5 million mark. Keep in mind, this is the 80s. Okay, so before we go on to modern Doctor Who, what have we learned? What have we learned from each season of the classic series? Well, number one, don't put the show on hiatus for over a year. Number two, good ratings do not equal good episodes. Number three, high figures are not sustainable and they will drop over time. 4, the competition of other shows will naturally make a series' ratings go down year by year. And 5, all numbers need context. Okay, on to series 1. Hello to all the people who skipped ahead. You should probably go back and check all that stuff I said about Classic Who. It's really important, guys, trust me. But here we are, the revival of Doctor Who. Let's look at how it turned out. Pretty damn good. A 10 million viewer premiere is astounding. It's genuinely great. And this period of the mid-2000s was a great time to be on TV. A renaissance, if you will. Lost, Buffy, Firefly. There's a lot of banger shows on at the moment. This is a period of time where the internet has been around just for a little bit and television is still king. But wait, what's this? We dropped a little. We're not staying at 10 million. Well, if you didn't skip ahead, you know what I'm gonna say, but this 10 million figure is simply not sustainable. The numbers will just naturally drop over time. Certain episodes have a massive marketing push behind them, and these episodes tend to get higher figures than all of the ones around them. Now, sometimes these episodes in this case will be the premiere, sometimes they might be the finale, and sometimes, in a few rare cases, they may even be the mid-series portion. But in the case of Series 1, we start at the top and go down to the bottom to a still impressive 6.9. This series is a success. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys, but the series gets more successful. Let's talk about Series 3, because this is a case where we actually have an end of series push. Look at the ratings here, 8.6. This is actually comparable to the premiere, 8.7. Both incredible figures, but there is a dip. The mid-series portion, Blink, 6.62. Remember this for later. Let's go to Series 4, the season of Doctor Who which people like to call the golden age of modern Who. Now, I'm not going to dispute that it is a very successful series, but let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the context. By the way, notice when it starts. I should have pointed this out before, but Series 1 started around this period as well. March, April, the golden spot. That's where you want to start your series of Doctor Who. 9 million. Incredible. And let's go to the ending. 10 million. What a success. But it's not sustainable. The mid-series dip. Silence in the Library, another episode by Stephen Moffat, and the most popular of the series. I did a poll, this one, 6.27. Remember these figures. Now let's jump ahead to Series 11. I have been aching to talk about this series and its ratings for a long time, but let's just dive right in. The Woman Who Fell to Earth premiered at 10 million viewers. Jesus, that is very good. The follow-up, 9 million. And then, as we see as the series progresses, the numbers slowly go down until the finale, the Battle of Ranskor Avkolos, an episode which I am not personally a fan of, but you know we move, concludes at a respectable 6.65. Now, if we compare this to Series 1, you may notice it's the exact same trajectory. The episodes finish at around the same figures as well. And also you may have noticed that the Battle of Ranskor Avkolos got a higher figure than both Blink and Silence in the Library. Ratings equals quality copers are in the mud. If that doesn't prove to you that ratings don't equal quality, I don't know what will. But let's take a step back because I'm about to blow your mind here, guys. Series 5, Matt Smith, my fraud. Let's look at his numbers. 10 million start. Very good, very nice, massive success. 6 million finish. Slow and natural decline till the end. It's almost like every time they introduce a new Doctor Who, there's a massive marketing push, they get big numbers, and then it naturally goes down over time. Let's cut to a few years later, Matt Smith's third series. Let's look at Series 7B. Very impressive start, we chill at around 7 mil, then we droop a little bit to 6 mil. You know, nothing all too bad, except you have to remember, this is 2013. This is Doctor Who's 50th anniversary year. There is a lot of hype here, but things are not that simple. Because yes, if we look only in the context of Doctor Who, 2013 is a big year for Doctor Who. But you know what 2013 is also a big year for? The internet. This is around when Netflix was getting popular. This is around when I remember YouTube taking off. I think this was when PewDiePie started gaining just ridiculous amounts of subscribers. The alternatives to television were finally coming up. And 2015 onwards, television is going down. Naturally, just naturally. Not as many people are as watching in 2015 as they were in 2005. And you can see that in the viewing figures. We have a very respectable 6 million start, and then we remain around consistent to a very respectable 6 million finish. This series is where I remember the ratings discussion really exploded because people weren't used to 6 million being the average. They were used to 6 million being the decline. But no, I think it's natural for a series that isn't the first of a new Doctor Who, that doesn't have a massive marketing push behind it, to have figures around about this in the modern day. These don't seem anything out of the ordinary to me. There's a small dip in the middle, but things remain largely consistent. Yes, it's quite a large drop off from the start of the previous series, but it's nothing disastrous. I would say that 5 million is good for nowadays. With how less people are watching TV than ever, in my opinion, these figures are genuinely impressive. Especially when you consider that if we look at the week's programs overall, Doctor Who was scoring quite high, usually being either the second, third, or even first most watched program of the day. Now let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's go to Series 12, the follow-up to Series 11. It's not as good. Again, it starts at around a 6 million and it slowly declines to around a 4 million, which, to be honest, seems kind of standard. If we look at the views that the trailer for Series 12 got, that's not that much. They clearly did not push it out to as many people. If you don't know, on YouTube, you can pay to have your trailer be watched more and more. That's where most of the views on trailers come from. There clearly was not a massive marketing push for the series. As we can see, it aired on New Year's Day. I imagine a lot of people thought that it was just a one-off special. The episodes also aired on Sunday as opposed to the Saturday that people are more usually used to. But to be honest, this is comparable to Series 9. If we imagine that TV is on a decline, it only really makes sense that Doctor Who would follow that decline. It's not demonstrably worse than it was a couple years ago. In fact, it is quite comparable. If we compare it to Series 10, we will look that that one started at around 6 million and at one point dropped to the 4 millions as well. What I think happened here is that Doctor Who was on a natural decline, just as all series do once they reach their 10th series. And Series 11, with its massive marketing push and its promise to reinvent the show brought in a bunch of people. But of course, 10 million viewing figures cannot last. It's not sustainable. The show then continued on its natural decline after the massive jump from series 10 to 11. Is it a part of some massive conspiracy? Is it a part of all viewers checking out? I don't think so. I would say, considering the state of TV, considering the state of streaming, that these numbers are not too poor. And as we all know, it was around the time of Series 13 that Chris Chibnall announced that he would be stepping down. He said that the reason he was doing this is because Jodie Whittaker said that she wanted to leave and they had made a promise that they were both going to leave at the same time. But if we look at the announcement dates of Chris Chibnall leaving and Russell T Davies coming back, and I also imagine that by the time that Jodie Whittaker had announced that she was going to leave the role, that auditions, or at least planning for auditions, had started on who would be their replacement. Because if you don't know, David Tennant coming back was not the original plan. No, the original plan was for the 14th Doctor to be played by a random actor. As we now know, they are Ncuti Gatwa, but those plans had to be scrapped when Ncuti Gatwa was cast in the Barbie movie. Russell T Davies then came up with the idea to bring back David Tennant and Catherine Tate after they had done some of the Doctor Who lockdown stuff, and so the idea of the 14th Doctor was born. It's actually quite a tight timeline, but what that means is that the 2022 specials had no influence over the casting decision of David Tennant in any way. Now, if we look back at Series 13, they're actually rather similar. The viewing figures dip around 1 million, which over the course of a series is pretty good. The figures remained relatively consistent at around 4 million, 5 million, which, considering it's a mini-series, considering it came out in 2021, like COVID times, it's good, it's passable, it's okay, nothing really shocking here. These, on the other hand, these are just not good. These are specials, okay? So each of these episodes could have had a marketing push around them, and they didn't. Now, these two, despite being worse, I can kind of look over because they're like whatever episodes. Legend of the Sea Devils in general, this is one of the lowest figures, but The Power of the Doctor, this episode did have a marketing push behind it. This episode had David Tennant coming back in it. For this episode not to reach 6 million viewing figures is a little concerning for me, which leads me to the conclusion of the video. We have now gone through the history of all Doctor Who ratings, both classic and modern. I have shown how there are natural dips even in the most popular of series. I have shown that over time the ratings figures have naturally gone down as television has lost the battle to streaming and YouTube, which means we are at an impasse. Where should I go from here? Well, I think I should explain my predictions for the 2023 specials. Airing on these dates, please dear Lord, air in April. These specials are coming back to Saturday. I assume that the seasons are going to stay on Saturday. And the first thing that I want to get out there, just so everyone knows, is that the marketing push for these specials has been insane. The last time I would say Doctor Who has been this well marketed is Series 11. If you guys weren't around in the UK to experience the marketing push of Series 11, there were posters everywhere. The trailers were everywhere. Bus stations, train stations, all of my ads on YouTube were like Doctor Who stuff. Right now, this isn't necessarily on that level, but the hype is still definitely there. I've spoken to people who haven't been following Doctor Who for the past few years. They have heard of these episodes. Whether or not they're coming back, I don't know. I haven't really asked, why would I? But the point is, people are aware of these. Second to note, these episodes will be streaming on Disney+. Now, of course, all the viewing figures that we've been talking about so far are UK only. And Disney+ having same-day broadcast, whether or not it's going to be a live broadcast or whether or not they're just going to be dumped there, this will have an impact on the viewing figures. But how much? How many people are going to watch the Doctor Who specials on Disney+? What are the viewing figures going to look like if we account for that? Well, I've pulled up this, the Obi-Wan TV show. Now, Disney+ is infamous for keeping all of their ratings really close to their chest, but these ones were released, and if I recall, Kenobi was touted as the most successful Disney+ show. And as we can see here, from its Friday premiere to Monday, Kenobi pulled in 2.14 million. And yes, as it says here, that is above The Mandalorian. And I think actually, just to go back off track, when you see those numbers there, it makes you appreciate these more. Like, yes, the Halloween Apocalypse got more than double the viewing figures of Kenobi Episode 1. As I mentioned before, these aren't atrocious viewing figures or anything. And thirdly, these are specials. They don't need to sustain a massive figure across a 10 or 8 weeks as as the seasons will be now, they don't need to keep the viewing figures consistent for that long. It's a 3-week stretch with another one on Christmas. And I didn't really go into it, but I'm sure you could have put it together. Doctor Who is very successful on Christmas. Far more successful than it is on New Year's. It was an interesting experiment. Now we know for sure Christmas is for Doctor Who. But now all that's been said, what is my prediction for the viewing figures for Doctor Who 2023? Of course, I don't want to overshoot. I don't want to get people hyped up. I'm going to go with, not including Disney Plus, 8 million for the Star Beast. Now, I do think it's a bit too early to call Wild Blue Yonder and the Giggle. I'm sure by the time that the Star Beast figures have been released, we'll have a better idea of how many people are watching, how many people are interested, and how many people are going to continue watching. But yes, my guess for the viewing figures for the specials are a 7 or 8 million turnout. Now, what I want to make 1,000,000% completely clear, and I've been saying this for ages, even if the figures are lower than that, even if they're far lower than that, obviously it's not going to happen, but even if the viewing figures were 500,000 people, we do not have to worry about Doctor Who being cancelled. Considering we know that there's production work on Series 14 and they've already almost finished Series 15, we do not have to worry about the show being cancelled. Please stop saying that. If we know that there's a season coming afterwards, we don't have to worry about a show getting cancelled. Also, I probably should have mentioned this, but there was an over year-long gap between Series 11 and 12. That's also partially kind of the reason why the numbers dipped. Maybe I should edit that in. Who cares, guys? We're at the end of the video. This was a long one, and I'm sorry for not consistently uploading this week as much as I have done in the past. As I explained in the intro, things have been a bit turbulent recently. But with all that said, I hope you could still enjoy. I hope you learned a few things new. I hope even if you didn't, you enjoyed yourself. Keep in mind, this is just a very bare bones overview. I didn't go into the specifics of why certain dates may have done slightly worse than others, like whether it was a hot afternoon or whether it was raining, etc, etc. I didn't go into full depth, but this video is long enough as it is, okay? And I hope that if any of you have been saying that they brought David Tennant back because of ratings, that you'll stop now. I'm really looking forward to the specials. I'm thinking of making a few more videos in the run-up. And with all that said, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. A massive shout out to my members. Okay, that's the end of the video.